Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. It's Thursday. Does it feel like Friday?
Yes.
It has since Monday.
Right. Yes.
This whole summer is bananas.
Mhm.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Liz Caruso, Michelle Bruno, known as Bruno, and myself, Dalia Elgazar, are thrilled to have you here. I know that we're going to have our usuals and can't wait until they pop in. Comments, tell us if you're listening in, if you're walking the dog, audio to text. It would be funny to see what it says your name is, but just do it anyway to amuse us. Sean is here. It's a scorcher in Minneapolis.
Happy
So
birthday, Sean.
Yes, Sean is here. We can start the games now, the Hunger Games. Our topic of this week is something that Bruno has been like fermenting for 20 plus years. Karen, we would not have a show without you. I'm telling you. You need to be a guest on our show. I tried to email you and text you smoke signals, pigeons, and LinkedIn, and you got everything like locked down. So you need to reach out to us. Michelle Johnson. Oh my goodness, this is so awesome. Anyway, so we are talking about now I know why you're on the call, on this session, Michelle. Oh, Riley's due for a nap. We are talking about the progress of women in the events industry, and is this still an issue worth discussing? And I'm saying hell to the yes on this one. Bruno, what about you?
Yeah, I went to do research because I hadn't really seen anything recently. And there's like hardly anything out there more recent than 2019. PCMA had been digging into it. I know MBI had been doing reports. Some of the industry publications were talking about gender pay gap and things like that. And you would think there would be more on it, unless maybe it's rolled into DEI, the DEI discussions. I don't know, but I think there's like that. There's since then a lot of women-only groups have popped up. Women in events, women in event tech, women in exhibitions, on and on. So I'm wondering if we've just solved those problems within those little small groups. Like we're all like raring to go and got our claws out, and we're ready to conquer the industry. But I feel that there's still a lot that hasn't been solved. Women are not making what men are making in the events industry, I believe. We know that nationwide, that's still a thing. So there's no reason to believe that we're, some bubble of major success and earning power. And I wanted to talk about it because I think we're still here. We make up the far majority of the workforce in events. So why are we not? We need to go on strike. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Let's get on the picket line.
Can you imagine if the women?
Totally, it would be done. It would shut.
It would shut down. Remember, there was a movie. Was there a movie where it was like a shut something? The whole system shut down. In California, where all the workers, like in the gas stations, etc., all of a sudden said, "We're not doing this," and they just disappeared, and it looked like zombie land. It was like nothing worked, and I can totally see that within our industry. So why is it though? Let's ask the question: is it that we are not privy to data? Is it that we are not getting, to the right people to tell us their stories? What is stopping the events industry? We're going to just focus on that right now in discussing the progress of women in the industry. Why are we still seeing on, leaders forums, women leaders forums, just really, I'm not going to say, I'll say superficial sessions around imposter syndrome and shit like that, but not the real stuff that we should be addressing.
Well, I'm with Linda. Linda's talking about change has to come up from the top. But in a way, I feel like it's almost blaming the victim. You know, if we are the subjects of the discrimination, so-called discrimination, why do we have to learn how to negotiate salaries better? Why do we have to show up and be uber flexible when
There's no proactivity?
yeah, I mean, I don't understand why the top and I know a lot of organizations are addressing it, but I mean I've been talking about this, thinking about it, you know, since like the 80s. So like what's going on here?
Yeah, it's a lot to have women figure out the solutions to why we are not being valued in the industry. And it's mind-boggling. Every event that you're on, everywhere I look, it's women running. Even, you know, what I think would have at some point been considered more like male-driven pieces of our industry, like setting up the exhibition shows. And so I still see so many women. So they have lots of awards now. That was something I know I wanted to talk about, all these awards for best women in blah, blah, blah. It seems to be the same people. I've been blessed to be on them sometimes, but even I know when you see those lists go up, it's kind of like, okay, so how did we decide that? I think Dahlia, you and I were once on like the top 5 women in event tech, and I was like, that's super nice, but that can't possibly be true, at least of myself.
Every time a list like that happens, I feel like it needs to be expanded on and tenfold.
We all tag each other. We're like, also, right, don't forget.
It's either I look at it where it's like, you know, is it an SEO play? I totally think of it this way. Is just this another opportunity to tag Liz, Bruno, and myself yet again, just because it's going to get you maybe new eyeballs or something? Or you did it because you know of the credibility, you know of the value that we do bring to the industry, but yet then give us a chance to tell the story, or to give us a chance to at least raise the red flag on what could be done better. And also give us a chance to name others that are trailblazing in the industry. So like the Hall of Fame, I appreciate, I respect, thank you. I feel old like Clint Eastwood and, you know, others. But what I'm saying is, you need to tap into those minds, because those minds have, and like Bruno was saying, she's been tormented by this for like 20 plus years. This is a lot of time, right? So, but that means that shit needs to get done. So if we can name the trailblazers, and we see the credibility that women, you know, have within the industry, like Michelle Johnson, for example, she is the diva in Vegas. Like, and I am biased because Michelle and I went to high school together in Egypt. But if you ever go to Las Vegas and do not check on Michelle Johnson's like gigs and everything, and she is a businesswoman like nobody's business. But like even in the music business, you see the trailblazers, especially the women, and then you have to understand what are the nuances that we can get more of them, if that makes sense. And like, what are the obstacles? What are the things that are keeping us from being more progressive? We, like, right now, we're in a dilemma as women in the events industry. We're in a dilemma because we are actually the role models and those that the younger generation are looking at. So if they look at us and they want to come into the events industry and they see that we're still struggling after 20 plus years, what are we doing? What are we doing that is trailblazing the trail for them?
Okay, so this opinion is my own and not
there's like a big
other person with whom or company with
we're gonna bleep this one out, okay?
I don't want it to be poorly reflected, but maybe we should unionize.
First you want to strike, now you want a union. What's next?
I don't even know what that means because I've never been in a union. I have worked with many unions over the years. Some are great, some are bad, and not so great. But it all comes down to, the location, the individual people that you're interacting with. It's not, either way is never representative of the union overall. But, if we're really serious about this, obviously talking, and as I think Linda said, advocating with industry leadership isn't moving the needle. So
let's think, okay, we want a union and we want to go on strike, right? But what can move the needle? What can we do to move the needle? Because I don't know who said it here, and while I'm looking at the comment, I do want to acknowledge and I appreciate that Sean and Jordan are on active with us here. And actually Jordan has a great idea and maybe he can help us out. But I think there was a comment on here where we need to go straight to the top to sort of talk about these issues. And maybe that's the start of not a union, but a different spin on it. Let's spin it a bit, because when you say union, us as event profs, we cringe. We're like, what are you talking about? So
do we know if women in exhibitions, women in whatever, insert your thing here, are advocating directly to top leadership? I don't know. I'm not involved in those.
Well,
I can be from the outside and bitch about it. Okay, I'm ready for that criticism, but also as a journalist, it's my job to keep bringing it up.
And I think you're absolutely spot on, and we should bring it up, and we should also bring it up in the sense of, how does this relate, and how does this affect generations? In regards to those that have been in the industry for long and those that are coming in, so that it's actually something that we share with them. So there needs to be some data point. There needs to be some sort of, like Linda was saying, strength in numbers across these different associations. And potentially, maybe it is that we have some sort of representation circle that advocates to the higher leadership. And when we say higher leadership, define that a bit. Is it within an organization, or is it within the industry, or both?
The employers, the top level, the decision makers around women's benefits and job flexibility and accommodations. Whoever is making those decisions, we're presuming is in a leadership position, and we have to find those people and just have one-on-one conversations, I think. And to your point, Dahlia, the next generation coming in, we talked a little bit about this before we went on air, but there's a lot of young males that really aren't progressing. I think that some of them feel like, I'm not going to do anything if I can't be Mark Bezos, and on the other side, women are going to college in record numbers. Women are getting degrees in record numbers. Women are improving themselves in record numbers, which makes me even more upset, that we're not making the strides that we should. So the next generation may be even worse off than we are.
I wonder, the strike concept is, I was thinking of organizations outside of the events industry and inside of the events industry right now, who post-pandemic are just forcing everyone to go back to the office. So flexibility being one, clearly, has my children are climbing on top of me during the podcast, one of the issues that I think all women need more flexibility. And so as I think about that, I'm thinking about these organizations who are forcing people to go back to the office. I've heard of organizations forcing people back 3 days. And then we know what happens, 4 days and then 5 days.
And then ultimate.
I've heard that you won't be paid if you're not in 3 days a week. Then
you're given an ultimatum.
Yeah. And so I see how the organizations kind of do what they want. I can't imagine having long conversations. I think a lot of it from an entire DEI perspective is just for show. I'm just I just feel like, okay, we'll have the conversations and we can say we did something. That's not solving the problem. So I'm wondering, like, kind of like individual advocacy. I think, for example, there have been times where just a client, could be even a woman client, and this is obviously for those of us who work independent, says, here's the scope. I give the proposal and they say, oh no, that's way too much money. And you have to sit and say, well, then sorry, you'll have to find someone else. And that's a painful moment to choose. But I have actually had those same clients come back a year or two later after they've hired someone for cheaper and decided that wasn't worth what they want. That wasn't exactly what they wanted, and they're willing to pay more. And I feel like we all have to decide that, like, here's the standards. Here's what we need to be paid. Here's what we are bringing to the table, and we need to understand that. And even within, you're going to work inside an organization, well, then I know it's hard, but like, don't accept a job that's not paying you what you think you should be paid. You're in a job and they're forcing you to do all these things with lack of flexibility and low pay. Go somewhere else. I feel like those are the only ways we're going to be able to change the tide. And I think, which I'm excited about, that pushes a lot more people into this independent space. Do your own thing, because clearly the corporations are not doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's scary, but that's the only way. Otherwise, we're just kind of saying, all right, well, they're not paying me enough, but I got to pay the bills and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Sean is saying, yeah, you have to just kind of know this is the value. And we all have to know that for ourselves. And maybe there's some way that we can share information, because that's another issue in our industry, is that we don't share what we charge per hour. We don't share how we price out projects. And so, you know, then you're coming to the table, you're not sure where you stand, which I think to some degree is okay, as long as you have some reasoning behind where you stand. But maybe it's less about us all getting together and pay the same amount, and more about whatever it is that's important to you. You have to be able to stick to that and turn down things that don't fit. And now, you know, there's a lot of people like, oh, millennials, they're not going to work for an organization that doesn't align with a cause that they care about. Well, guess what? That's because there's enough millennials who really are doing that. And now organizations are like, oh shit, if we want to get some millennials working for us, we better. And that's the way I see change happening. I don't see it with these conversations.
And one of those causes is the way people work.
Yeah.
And the purpose around which they work. And yeah, I see it with my own children. You know, they just don't settle for, you know, being downgraded in a lot of ways. So I think Linda's really I think fired Linda out.
I think we fired a lot of them up.
It's coming in. It's coming in hot.
So one question that I have in mind, though, like, does this change the role of HR within organizations? Are the human resource directors, for example, are they then the sounding board to leadership, and should they be the top advocates for women? And Bruno, to your point, for younger men, everyone, basically, you know, into the organization. And what does that do to? So what happens is you have talent within an organization, especially the newbies, where they're so timid, they're afraid for their job, they're afraid for that paycheck, they don't want to rock the boat. Mm-hmm. So we get to a point where they ferment, they get angry, voice anything, right? Well, so does HR take a different role? Does this, like, or do you take it even out of HR's hands, for example, and you come up with some sort of your idea of a union? We're not going to call it union because that gives me hives. It makes me think I'm at a show. I cannot even touch the mic or the PA system, or else I'll get slapped. And I get slapped a lot at events. But something like the union, but a setup, a concept that is empowering those people to speak up for their worth, and has the ears and eyes of the leadership team.
In my limited understanding and experience with HR teams, and it is very limited. I have observed that HR teams are an extension of the leadership of the company. They are not advocates for employees. So
that's why I'm saying,
my
is
answer
it a
to you
different
is
role?
no, it's not an HR thing.
So it's a different role.
Yeah, but they need the wherewithal, they need the support of leadership. They need the ability to, make decisions for the good of employees. And I don't know if that's a new
Where the
role
paycheck
or
comes from.
Huh?
yeah.
Whatever that new role is, like if they're being paid by the leadership, they're eventually going to have to answer to what.
Actually, maybe it's a consultancy role. Maybe it's someone that goes in and out of different organizations, but it is a set concept.
We need Maddie Grant on this. Maddie Grant.
Oh,
Remember
time
Maddie?
for me to name a new role for Dahlia. Who is this LinkedIn user that needs a name and me to get to them? I don't need another role, believe me. Trust me, I would love to have this one. I would have a lot of fun.
Like creating the culture, the new culture, and promoting women and making sure that women. Well, I read that like DEI people, the leaders of DEI, the chief DEI executive, are being done away with. Like we've had our fun, and
Was it why is that though?
I don't know. It's just becoming less of an emphasis. Like Liz said, you get your chief sustainability officer, and then they're out like within a year or two. And then you have your DEI people, and now they're kind of going back on the down low. I don't know. I think it's just, for a while, 2019 pre-COVID, we had our, time in the sun, and now it's over.
Or is it being rolled under a bigger umbrella?
Yeah,
like is
what?
it some?
Like
I was going
the
to say
majority of the
HR.
workforce umbrella?
No, I will tell you,
Probably make them happy. I'm
it
thinking.
could be under HR.
Yeah.
Or there needs to be a new, like, I don't know, staff something role. I have no idea. I'm just talking out loud here.
Yeah,
We need the creative juices of this, the geniuses.
Mhm.
Name the title, not the role for Dahlia. Name the role, and where does it live? Does it live outside of the core of the organizations, which actually should be the best way? That way they, actually that's one way. If they come in and out and give that advice, leadership will listen.
Chief Diva. Michelle, do you like that? Chief Diva. Goddess and chief, whatever.
So if we say that there's this entity, we say this entity exists where it actually speaks to leadership, like someone was suggesting at industry events, for example, comes up with the data points, comes up with what's stopping the progress of women in the events industry,
mm-hmm.
and how we can solve that, and shaping that. Would that work? And something that's outside of everything else.
Yeah. Even I want to ask you guys, well, maybe not you, Dahlia, but Liz, are you pretty much charging the same thing today that you did 10 years ago? Or have you raised your prices, or how have you dealt with that?
Riley and Lucas have raised the prices.
No, I've raised my rates a lot in the last few years.
Yeah. Good. Great.
Michelle,
so we got to do it on our own.
Yeah. Michelle Johnson, have you raised your rates? I know that you're in the music industry, but have you raised your rates for the services that you provide? I would love to know. Actually, from all the geniuses, have you raised your rates? Even Sean, have you raised your rates in the last couple of years?
Even Jordan.
And Karen and Linda.
Yeah. So it's a combination of personal advocacy, industry advocacy with team leadership, Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Rates are tripled.
That's
Hey.
the Egyptian in her. Just
Ooh.
saying. That's the Egyptian in her.
um, just keeping this, on the table, keeping this discussion on the table. I know there's a lot of discussions on the table, but I mean, other than Nancy Walsh, I mean, who is in leadership in the organizer piece that is our women?
You have
Dog.
Monique Bell. You have Catherine Frankson. You
Mhm.
have Liz Irving. You have association leaders such as even Jill Gately,
Mhm.
Blumline, because change of name. And you have others. But the thing that I think that limits women progress within the events industry is the lack of them having enough spunk or like it data of what they've provided for the organization that makes the leadership team listen.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I also think it's this ever changing morphing of their responsibilities. Like for the last couple of years, I've seen our meeting, our clients, organizers, especially females, that because they are able to do so much and handle so many different types of staff members, etc., leadership has been putting them like playing pong. Go take care of this. No, we take this from you and we're going to give it to someone else, but you oversee it. But now we're going to give you 2 more big projects and this whole morphing. But the compensation doesn't go with it. The title change doesn't go with it.
What about this idea?
Okay, let's do this.
Okay. What if
We need to get her off the union train now.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
that and a strike,
out
this
there.
whole shit show is going to be red flagged.
What about this? So when the younger males come into the job, we women take it upon ourselves to mentor them. It's like, hey, Bobby, Mohammed, Jose, come here. Let me just tell you how you can get the rest of the women who make up the majority of this workforce to be with you, not against you, and how it makes us feel when men, or whomever, people in leadership positions disregard the value that we bring and the job that we do. Maybe we help them with the understanding right from the get-go. Their first day on the job, we're just like, come here, honey. Let's have a little chit chat. And I think that their brains are still forming and they might remember that and they might appreciate it. And we help them and nurture them. That's our job. What do you think of that?
I love it.
It's a very long tail of change.
It is, but it's already on the long tail, and the way
we're doing already been a long time.
Yeah, the way we're doing it obviously isn't getting us to where we need to go fast enough. So we're going to have to maybe try some other tactics.
We talked on a different episode about this idea that the workforce will kind of eventually evolve into a bunch of independent contractors, and I do think that would help. Yeah. The idea of pay is to Dalia's earlier point. If people were hired and paid by scope, and as the scope changed, the budget changed, like it does with independent planners, that we can go back and say, whoa, you didn't have 50 speakers, you had 10. So for the extra 40, it will be this many. And it causes the client or the organization to think, is this something that's meaningful and is it worth X dollars? And if so, then absolutely you do it. And if not, then you don't. And maybe seeing that, and also people's time instead of your salary, therefore you do what I tell you to do all the time, would really give our industry the chance to kind of float up in a good way, if organizations would even consider doing something like that. But hopefully us individual humans can kind of force them to do that. Yes.
To Karen's question, how are you going to reach out to the newer folks? I think that I would just say, let's go get a coffee. Let's kind of, I've been here longer than you. I kind of know the industry a little bit better than perhaps you do. And maybe we mentor them, through it. But in the mentorship, it has to be like, please consider this attitude change that you might adopt because you see leaders doing it. Don't do that. You're going to get more flies with honey kind of thing. And
Well,
plus you get to go to, have coffee with the new guy, and who doesn't want to do that? New guy, the new they, whatever, just come on, let's have a chat. That's what I think.
So maybe this is an evolution of a different type of staff member or contractor or consultant that goes into different associations, organizations on the dark side, the supplier side, on the planner side, even industry associations. But so it's almost like when we do legal advocacy at Capitol Hill, for events and how it affects economies, etc. Our economy is women professionals, as well as it's actually all. So we started the session talking about the progress of women in the events industry. Bruno, you flipped it, where you brought in the concern of younger men within the industry coming in. I mean, that's based on other factors.
But it's self-serving, Dahlia. It's self-serving. I want to mentor them so that they take care of us.
So there you go. That's what Michelle does too. She hired several men so that her clients can watch her tell them what to do. And it's been a huge part of how she gets shit done. So, but that's a morph. Which I love.
Now they're all quitting on her.
I love that morph more than you saying, let's go on strike or let's create a union.
It was just an idea.
I know, but yeah, it's a big word. I do think that there needs to be some sort of movement. And the movement has to be
an act of desperation, but when do we get to be desperate? I think that we're kind of desperate. I mean, look at poor Liz. They're literally clinging on her. They're literally dangling from her shoulders. She, because here's one thing. Okay, so if you're not going to raise the pay for childcare. Give us a childcare or an elder care or a family care stipend. You can write it off, just like other business expenses. And you know what? We could probably, a lot of us could deal with that.
Or, the reality is many people like myself choose to be home with our kids. That would be what they want. They don't want money to have someone else go do that.
Yes.
Not that I can't afford childcare, but for 30-minute podcasts, as wonderful as it is, no one's dying if I put myself on mute. And then the other 23 and a half hours of the day, I get to be with what I want to be with, and I get to work on my own schedule. And that's a much more balanced life. I know that most people think it's crazy, but I think most people actually, especially women, want to be doing more of that balance and could totally pull it off, but can't because employers won't allow it or because it's quote unquote unprofessional or something. But you get the coverage when you need it. I mean, obviously it would have been nice. We were supposed to have a babysitter this morning, but there are times when like a more flexible life needs to be understood that that's like possible. And that's really what makes people happy and allows them to deliver better quality work at the end of the day.
So well said, as always, Liz.
Well, this has been a fire.
I got it off
the fire, which is great. Thank you to all our geniuses. And I put a link up in the comments. If you can just go to that video, ask and tell us what you think of the show. The good, the bad, the ugly. We would love to hear from you. Next episode's coming up. We have August 3rd, our trade show association events, killing it, or are they being killed? But that was not in the title. And then an e-commerce approach to event registration. We want to help you make money, but it's the geniuses that give us the ideas on how you can make more money on your event registration. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We will see you next week. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel and hit the bell and hit subscribe, and we love you. Take care.